Three. Welcome to Badass Banking. I'm Brian Claggett. We've got a new guest today on the episode, Rajesh Patil from Digital Align. I love the name Digital Align. How are you today?
Doing good, Brian. Thank you. Appreciate you having me on this show.
Yeah, it's actually a show now, which is kind of funny. I
Yeah.
started doing this for fun, and now people are asking to be on it. So tell me about the company. Tell me about Digital Align, and then I'll tell you why I like the name so much.
Yeah. And I wanted to be on the Badass show, so I love it. Thank you for having me again. So Digital Align started as a consulting services company, especially focused on credit unions and community banks. So I worked for a credit union, Fintech Federal Credit Union, for almost 5 years, and I led the whole digital transformation at Fintech. And that basically, I saw how we aligned technology with business to get an ROI of 300 400%, right? That was an aha moment. So when we were looking at the name, we were thinking of how do I bring technology and business together. That's how we arrived at that. But the whole company purpose the company was born to help credit unions and community banks to compete with large financial institutions using technology. And just technology is not enough. So we bring in the other aspects of business to make sure they get the better ROI. So we are focused on business value, and that's what Digital Align does
Yeah,
with the
and
credit unions and community.
that's why I like the name, because the alignment ultimately between the brand, credit union or bank, and the member or customer is where the rubber hits the road, right? It's
True.
about leveraging digital to create an experience that is very contextual and relevant, and within the community banking space, which includes credit union, very purposeful, right? What are some of the challenges that you're seeing that financial services or banks or credit unions are having today?
So one of the challenges was, I'll talk about two challenges. One is when we talk to a lot of financial institutions, go talk to the executives and tell about how technology can transform you, how the process transformation will help you become more efficient. The response I used to get was, this sounds great. Come back 2 years later, we are upgrading our core, right? That's one of the biggest problem, where everybody was stuck in that, upgrading my infrastructure and not really thinking of how do I, the infrastructure is working fine. It's been working for 30 years. You don't need to upgrade your core to become more digital, but you need to know how to use it. So that's one of the challenge I used to see. And the second challenge is there was a different set of credit unions or community banks who were heavily investing on technology, but they were very technology focused, not really looking at what business value this technology is going to bring to me. And unfortunately, after investing few $100,000 or $1 million, after the end of the year, the ROI that I was seeing was very new. You spend $500,000 to put an online account opening, and if you have $40,000 in your deposits, where is the ROI? So these two problems, I think, stood out for me, helping them to leverage what they have and transform on top of it so that they can start getting the value faster, and literally doing something that brings the real value to the business, not just do it because it's a technology, it's a shiny object out there. So I think those were the two problems we thought to address.
And I think my own experience in the banking industry has been that a lot of people follow the shiny objects. And sometimes board members challenge management to follow the leader. They'll say, "Hey, Chase is doing this. Why aren't we doing it?" And in doing that, they're somewhat chasing their tail. So what I'm hearing you say is you help a financial institution define a purpose to ultimately what the technology will yield, and then you create a strategy to get to an end point, and all the tactics to get through the process. Is that a good analogy? Now,
that's for us. Technology is just an enabler. We don't follow the technology. Use it when you need it, and kind of get the business value. Because end of the day, it's all about revenues and margins.
Yep, I would agree. And we know what's going on with margin right now. It's pretty frightening in a
Yep.
zero interest rate environment. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So First Tech, First Tech is a great example. So you worked there for a while. That's actually one of my favorite credit unions. They've got a really strong value proposition. They've had a good team through the years. I've followed them for probably 15 years now, I would say. And obviously that is a very interesting market. Now, where are you located now?
I'm in East Bay in Fremont.
Okay. So you're in the
Bay Area in East Bay.
You're in the thick of the technology corridor, basically.
Yeah, I am. And the interesting story at First Tech was when the merger happens, there were two smaller credit unions, Addison Avenue and First Tech. They merged. I was the first employee to join after the merger, and was part of the merger activities. And after that, we lost our CEO to BECU, and we got Greg Mitchell was a new CEO.
Oh, okay.
Greg and I connected very well. I coming from a technology background and he wanting to transform, he called us Last Tech instead of First Tech when he joined the credit union. And he wanted us to, and he wanted us to kind of transform it. Greg, me, and we had a consultant come in. We kind of looked at the ground level diagnostics and kind of took a bottom up approach rather than top down. And the results we saw in 2 years was amazing.
Yeah, that's great. Now, how many clients do you guys have now?
Currently, I have 4 clients. We are very young, just starting with multiple discussions right now, good pipeline. But Toyota Financial Savings Bank is one of the community banks. I help them with their strategy, with their digital onboarding and kind of a digital presence. And we are currently working with GSA Credit Union, where we have a very good story to tell and an amazing success that we had, not just doing the strategy work, a bit of strategy work, but actually execution and seeing the results in action. And we have other One Easy Credit Union where we are doing some strategy work, and we are also work with East West Bank and other financial institutions. But we are just starting to catch up with the industry and seeing a lot of traction.
Well, there's certainly a lot of need. Are you running into barriers as it pertains to culture? Are you finding that some of the culture is still very conservative and staid in the banking industry? And how do you overcome some of that?
Yeah, it's the culture problem is always there, but it's shifting, right? And I'll tell you, the again, this is like an unfortunate thing for the credit unions and community banks, where a lot of the leaders who are there for a long time, they're scared of change, right? For them, I don't want to rock the boat. And this was like a few years back. COVID changed everything. But this was before COVID. There was a hesitant to kind of jump on to do something. And that culture now has changed. A lot of technology leaders have come into that industry and kind of driving it with a technology focus. And again, it's a double-edged sword, right? When you bring in someone technology and they start going fast towards implementing shiny objects again, you need a business view. But I think the culture is changing. It's a slow process. I think as the trust, especially the industry that we work on, trust is a very big factor. We bring in the trust because of our background, because of the deep knowledge and the deep experience within the industry, and that kind of works well. But somebody new coming in that industry, if there is no trust and no deep knowledge of the industry, it becomes a little hard. But the culture, I look as it's changing a lot.
Let's change gears for a minute. Let's talk about that favorite 4-letter word that banks and credit unions like to say, data.
Yeah.
Now, are you finding that there's a reluctance among the financial institutions out there to comprehensively leverage data?
There is, they have 40 years, 50 years old data, right? They are sitting on a gold mine. And I'll talk to the credit unions. Credit unions, when we used to ask, what is your cost of member acquisition? The response I used to get was, we don't measure that. We serve them. We don't want to measure how much they cost us. We are a service organization, right? Which is great. You have to be a service organization, but the badass part where you have to service to sales transformation, right? To become a service to sales organization, you have to leverage your data. If you don't know what your data is telling you, it's like, a navigation without knowing where you are and where you want to go. And data is the one which will tell you where you are, and you put the strategy, then you kind of continue to measure that data. So that, I think now they have realized to kind of leverage the data that they have, but it's still evolving. It's unorganized data, a lot of unorganized data sitting there, and it needs to be streamlined.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of data warehouses, but what they have to do is turn it into actionable information they can use, and then leverage that to create a contextual interaction, whether it's marketing or that personal interaction.
And I'll tell you, one of the financial institutions, we started with the ground level diagnostics, what we used to call, that's a discovery phase, where to understand your current state. And there were not many tools. We had to literally pull data, put it in Excel, and kind of evaluate it. And we literally saw almost $100 million worth of loans were left on the table, went in a black hole because there was no visibility of data. And once we fixed that plumbing, we saw sales of almost 200% increase without doing any marketing, because people were coming to your digital channel, but that was not managed. The data was not monitored, and a small switch, small change kind of changed the game for them. So it's very critical to have that view at this time right now.
It sounds like part of what you do when you engage a client is you look at the organizational silos, which generate the silos in experience. And you're able to make them approach the market a little more holistically or more customer or member centric, which I think makes sense. Are there any fintechs out there or bank or credit union brands that you really admire? And if so, could you tell us why?
DCU was Digital Federal Credit Union, was the first credit union back in '99 when I came here to US. That was the first credit union where you just have to send a $5 check in a mail, then they would give you a $5,000 credit card. I mean, that we used to call it as Indians are referred as Desi, and they used to call it as a Desi credit union. But it's like every immigrant who came in, the first thing they would do is go get that credit card. So I really admired that. They are very forward thinking. Even this was at 99, they're doing it. And I think First Tech, being the way they have evolved from being a $6 billion to a $12 billion credit union, that's amazing. But to be a little selfish, Visa Credit Union that we are currently working with, I'm very proud of what they have done in the few months. Right, they started in December engaging with us, where they were doing a lot of loans were on home loans, but now in 3 months, 4 months, their volume has grown 4x, their revenue has grown 3x, and they are able to manage that without increasing the cost. And I think the efficiency that they have built in, it's a great example for the rest of the industry. Very proud of what they have been doing.
Yeah, that's great. Now, there's more information about them and I think a business case on your website. Is that correct?
Use case, you can download those case study and read more about them.
Okay. All right, good. What I'll do is in the comments below, I'll put a link to your company, a link to your LinkedIn profile so people can reach out and ask you some questions. And I'll mention some of the brands that you just mentioned as well. Listen, it's been great speaking with you. It sounds like you guys are doing some neat stuff. I'm excited about what's happening in financial services right now. This show, everything that we try to talk about here is, how do we decommoditize the industry, and how do we connect, the badass bankers with the badass brands? And I believe there are some badass brands out there lurking under the surface. And my goal is, again, to connect people like you to that. Again, I'll put all your info below. And for those of you that are watching the show, please like it, subscribe, dislike it, comment, do whatever you want to do. I'm trying to drive some engagement here. That's what this is all about. Listen, I appreciate you being on. I hope some people reach out to you, and maybe I'll have you on again. I've got an idea to have you on with Digital Onboarding, who also worked with Digital Federal Credit Union. I think I could probably talk them into coming on again.
Yeah. Thank you for your time. And I think it's a great time to be in the fintech and financial services. And thank you for doing what you're doing.
It really
the
is.
message. Yeah,
Well, I
thank you.
appreciate it. All right. Thank you very much.
All right.